What if I told you the next 72 hours will determine whether your family faces the coldest stretch in a decade or the warmest January on record? The atmosphere is about to make a decision that affects 150 million Americans, and the signs are already here. Right now, at this exact moment, a massive shift is building across North America. We're tracking a pattern that hasn't aligned like this in over 5 years. The last time we saw something similar? 2019. And what happened then changed everything for months. Here's what you need to know in the next 30 seconds, because this information could save you hundreds of dollars on heating bills. The jet stream, that massive river of air 5 miles above our heads, is about to flip. Not gradually, not slowly. We're talking about a complete reversal that meteorologists call a teleconnection pattern shift. And here's the critical part. This change affects temperatures by up to 40 degrees in just 72 hours. Stay with me for 3 minutes and 20 seconds, because that's when I'll reveal the exact day this shift hits your region. But first, you need to understand why this is happening now. The Creator designed our atmosphere with incredible precision. Every pattern, every shift follows divine order. And right now, we're witnessing something that happens only when multiple factors align perfectly. It's like watching the gears of a master clock click into place. Look at what's happening in Alaska. Temperatures there have dropped 50 degrees below average. 50 degrees. That's not a typo. The Arctic air mass sitting over Alaska right now contains enough cold air to drop temperatures across 48 states. But here's the twist nobody's talking about. A blocking pattern over Greenland is holding that cold air in place like a dam. For now. Why does this matter to you? Because in exactly 9 days, that dam breaks. The European ensemble model, one of the most accurate forecasting systems on Earth, just updated overnight. And the change is dramatic. We're seeing a ridge build over the eastern United States that will push temperatures into the 70s and 80s across the South. In January, meanwhile, the West Coast is about to get hammered with storm after storm. Here's where faith meets science. Throughout Scripture, we see seasons change according to divine timing. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 1 tells us there's a time for everything under heaven. And friends, we're entering a time of dramatic change. But wait, because at minute 5, I'm going to show you exactly which dates you need to circle on your calendar. The specific days when your region sees the biggest temperature swings. Keep watching, don't miss this critical information. Right now, let me paint you a picture of what's building. Imagine a trough of low pressure, a massive dip in the jet stream, diving down from Canada. On weather maps, we see this as deep blue colors representing heights 500 miles above sea level dropping by over 300 feet. That might not sound like much, but in atmospheric terms, that's enormous. This trough is currently sitting over the Northeast. That's why places like Buffalo just got buried under 2 feet of lake-effect snow in 24 hours. 2 feet. In one day, the same system keeping the Northeast in a deep freeze with temperatures 20 to 30 degrees below normal. But here's the question that should make you lean forward. What happens when that trough moves? The answer affects everything, from your heating bill to your travel plans, to whether your pipes freeze. And the models are showing us something remarkable. As we move into next week, that trough lifts north. At the same time, a massive ridge of high pressure builds from the Rockies all the way to the Atlantic coast. Let me give you the numbers, and they're stunning. Cities that are seeing temperatures in the 20s right now will jump to the 60s and 70s by next Thursday. That's a 40 to 50 degree temperature swing in less than a week. Places like Atlanta could hit 79 degrees in early January. Now, you might be thinking, that sounds nice after all this cold. But here's where it gets complicated, because what goes up must come down. And the same pattern that brings warmth also sets the stage for what comes after. Pay attention to this next part, because this is where we arrive at minute 5, and I'm keeping my promise. Here are your critical dates. Write these down. Monday, January 5th. The warm-up begins across the central states. Temperatures rise 5 to 10 degrees above normal. Wednesday, January 7th. The ridge peaks. This is when the warmest temperatures hit. We're talking possible records across the southeast and mid-Atlantic. Friday, January 9th. The first crack appears in the ridge. A weak system tries to break through, bringing a brief cool down. Saturday, January 10th. This is the date everyone needs to watch. The pattern starts to flip. That trough I mentioned earlier? It begins diving south again, but this time from the Pacific. And here's the biggest revelation, coming up right after we talk about what's driving all of this. Because understanding the why helps you prepare for the what's next. The atmosphere is controlled by these things called teleconnections. Think of them as switches that control large-scale weather patterns. Right now, we're watching 4 major switches all trying to flip at the same time. The first switch, the PNA, or Pacific North American pattern. When this goes positive, it means we get a ridge over western North America. That typically brings cold to the east and mild weather to the west. Right now, it's starting to flip positive. The second switch, the EPO, or Eastern Pacific Oscillation. This controls temperatures in Alaska. For months, Alaska has been locked in extreme cold because the EPO is negative, but the models show it might flip neutral soon. The third switch, the NAO, or North Atlantic Oscillation. This controls blocking over Greenland. When it's negative, cold air gets trapped in eastern North America. It's been neutral to slightly negative, which is why the Northeast has been so cold. The fourth switch, the MJO, or Madden-Julian Oscillation. This is the wild card. It's currently sitting in what meteorologists call the circle of confusion. That's an actual term. When the MJO is weak and unclear, the atmosphere becomes unpredictable. And that's exactly where we are now. As believers, we understand that our Heavenly Father holds all these patterns in His hands. Job 37 speaks of God's power over snow and rain, over the breadth of the waters and the freezing cold. We're watching His creation perform exactly as designed. But here's what you need to understand about the next 10 days. This isn't just academic. This affects real lives, real families, your family. Let me tell you about what happened last year at this exact time, January 2024. We had a similar pattern setting up, a brief warm-up, then bam, the bottom fell out. The Gulf Coast got a blizzard. A blizzard. In Mississippi and Alabama, temperatures dropped 70 degrees in 36 hours in some locations. Could that happen again? The honest answer is we don't know yet. The MJO needs to strengthen into a favorable phase. The other switches need to align. But the potential is there. And this is where we shift from problem to solution. What should you do? First, enjoy the warm-up next week if you're in the eastern half of the country. But don't put away your winter gear. Keep it accessible. Because that mild stretch might only last 5 to 7 days. Second, watch for the storm system around January 10th. The models are hinting at a significant weather maker trying to develop right as the pattern flips. Could be rain for some. Could be a wintry mix for others. It's too early for specifics, but the timing is noteworthy. Third, prepare for volatility. When patterns flip this dramatically, the transition period brings wild swings. One day it's 70, 3 days later it might be 30. Your body needs time to adjust. Stay hydrated. Get good sleep. These temperature swings stress the immune system. Now, let me show you something fascinating about the lake effect snow happening right now. Lake Ontario is producing a snowband that's 20 miles wide and hasn't moved in 36 hours. The same spot getting pounded continuously. Places like Fulton, New York could see 2 feet of additional snow by tomorrow morning. 2 feet on top of what they already have. Why does this matter for the rest of the country? Because it shows how locked in the current pattern is, but also how quickly it can change. Once that trough moves, that lake effect shuts off like someone flipped a switch. The western United States, meanwhile, is about to enter an active period. Storm after storm lining up in the Pacific. Northern California and the Pacific Northwest could see flooding rains. We're talking 3 to 6 inches of rain in the mountains, heavy snow at higher elevations. Some areas could get 2 to 3 feet of snow in the Cascades in Sierra Nevada. For those in California who've been praying for rain to end the drought conditions, these prayers are about to be answered. Multiple storms over the next 2 weeks. It's a blessing and a challenge. Too much rain at once can cause problems, but the reservoirs desperately need this water. Here's another critical number: 82 degrees. That's the forecasted high for parts of Louisiana next Tuesday. In January, meanwhile, just 500 miles north, it'll be in the 20s. That's a 60-degree temperature gradient. It's like having winter and spring existing simultaneously across neighboring states. This temperature clash is what meteorologists watch closely. Because when warm air and cold air meet, storms form. And the more dramatic the temperature difference, the more intense the storms can be. Let's talk about the severe weather risk for tomorrow, Saturday. Across southern Georgia and northern Florida, conditions are favorable for strong thunderstorms, maybe even a few tornadoes. The Storm Prediction Center has outlined a marginal risk, which means a 2% tornado probability. It's not a major outbreak, but in January, any tornado risk deserves attention. The storm system bringing this also brings beneficial rain. Much-needed rain. Atlanta hasn't seen significant rain in weeks. They could get an inch between now and Sunday morning. Birmingham, Columbia, Augusta, all in the rain zone. An inch might not sound like much, but during winter when precipitation is usually scarce, it's significant for drought relief. Up north, there's going to be a tricky mix of precipitation tomorrow across Virginia. Rain changing to sleet, maybe some wet snow. Nothing major, but enough to make roads slick. If you're traveling in that region, leave extra time. Now, remember I said the best part comes later? Here it is. The pattern flip around January 10th through 15th. That's when everything gets interesting. Because that's when we might see a true winter weather setup for the south and east coast. The models are showing a trough diving deep into the eastern United States. Deep cold. And if moisture can tap in from the Gulf of Mexico at the right time, we're talking about a significant winter weather potential. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm saying the ingredients are starting to come together. Think about this from a faith perspective. We plan, we prepare, but ultimately, we trust in God's provision. Proverbs 16 verse 9 says, "We can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps." Or in this case, the Lord determines whether that storm develops or not. The long-range ensemble models show the pattern remains favorable for winter weather chances through late January. Not a guarantee. But the door is open. After weeks of the pattern being locked, we're finally seeing potential. Let me give you the temperature trend for major cities. This is important because it shows you the magnitude of change coming. New York City, currently 32 degrees. By next Wednesday, 55 degrees. By January 15th, could drop back to 28 degrees. Atlanta, currently 45 degrees. By next Wednesday, 77 degrees. By January 15th, could drop back to 38 degrees. Chicago, currently 20 degrees. By next Wednesday, 48 degrees. By January 15th, could drop back to 18 degrees. Dallas, currently 62 degrees. By next Wednesday, 79 degrees. By January 15th, could drop back to 42 degrees. Miami, currently 76 degrees. By next Wednesday, 81 degrees. January 15th and beyond. Stays mild in the 70s. See the pattern? Dramatic swings everywhere except South Florida. This volatility is what we need to prepare for. The extended forecast shows multiple opportunities for winter weather between January 10th and January 25th. Not continuous cold, but waves. Cold for a few days, then milder, then cold again. This is actually typical for January in the south and east coast. We rarely get sustained Arctic blasts. Instead, we get these pulses. But here's what makes this year different. The Pacific Ocean has been setting up favorably. The water temperatures, the storm track, everything is aligning for a potentially active period. Could we see a repeat of last January's Gulf Coast blizzard? It's possible. Too early to say definitively, but possible. The ensemble guidance shows increasing agreement after January 15th. That's when multiple model runs start converging on similar solutions. Right now, in the 7 to 10-day range, there's still spread. Some models show colder outcomes, some milder, but they all agree on the warm-up next week followed by a return to seasonable or below normal temperatures. One thing I want to emphasize, don't cancel your plans based on long-range forecasts. Use this information to stay informed and flexible. If you've got travel plans for late January, keep watching the updates, but don't panic. We'll get better clarity as we get closer. For farmers and gardeners watching this, the warm-up next week followed by a potential hard freeze later in the month could be problematic for any early blooming plants. If you've got fruit trees or early spring bulbs starting to emerge, you might want to cover them during the warm spell to prevent premature growth. The snowpack in the mountains is building nicely out west. Good news for ski resorts and water supply. The eastern mountains have decent snow coverage too, especially in Vermont, New Hampshire, and upstate New York. That's not changing anytime soon in those higher elevations. Let me address the question I know some of you are asking. Is this climate change? Here's my perspective as a meteorologist and a person of faith. The climate is always changing, always has been. God designed a dynamic system. Are humans having an impact? That's a separate discussion. What matters for you today is preparing for the weather that's coming this month, regardless of the bigger picture debates. What I can tell you definitively is that January typically brings volatility. That's normal. What we're seeing this year fits within historical patterns, even if it feels extreme day to day. Now, as we wrap up, let me leave you with this. The next 2 weeks will be a journey through one of the more interesting pattern evolutions we've seen in recent years. Some of you will get snow, some will get ice, some will get rain, and some will just get wild temperature swings. But in all of it, we can rest in the knowledge that our Creator is sovereign over every weather pattern. Every cold front, every warm front, every storm system operates under His authority. So here's your action plan for the week ahead. 1. Enjoy the warm-up if it reaches you. Get outside, soak up that January sunshine while it lasts. 2. Stay weather aware around January 10th. That's when the pattern starts shifting again. 3. Don't put your winter gear in deep storage. Keep it accessible through the end of the month. 4. If you need to travel, build in flexibility. Winter travel requires backup plans. 5. Check on elderly neighbors and family members. Temperature swings can be hard on folks who are older or have health conditions. 6. Pray for traveling mercies for everyone on the roads during this active weather pattern. And here's your teaser for what's coming in the next video. We're going to dive deep into that January 10th through 15th timeframe. I'm talking detailed temperature maps, precipitation potential, and specific winter weather probability percentages for every region. The data coming in over the next 72 hours will be critical for that forecast. Plus, I'll show you the historical analogs, the years that had similar patterns to what we're experiencing now, and what happened in those years will surprise you. One particular year stands out, and when you see what unfolded, you'll understand why I'm watching these signals so closely. We'll also discuss the February outlook, because what happens in mid to late January often sets the stage for February. And there are some intriguing signals emerging for Valentine's Day week that every winter weather enthusiast will want to hear about. So make sure you're ready for that next update, because the weather is about to get very, very interesting. Until then, may God bless you and your family. Stay weather aware, stay prepared, and most importantly, stay faithful. The same God who calmed the storms on the Sea of Galilee is watching over you today. We'll talk again very soon with those crucial updates. The countdown to the pattern flip has begun. Don't miss what happens next.